Hi everyone, welcome to grade 11 math session. My name is Batsiwang Khavani and I'm your math teacher. Just to make sure that we're all in the right session, this is grade 11 math session, okay? And we are still doing analytical geometry. So please note down my email address. It's my name and surname @gmail.com. So my email address is my name and surname, no space. So it's batsiwangkhabani@gmail.com. So in case if you have questions after the lesson, then you are welcome to send me an email. Okay. So during the lesson, just make sure that you are on mute and your videos are off. We'll have questions at the end of an example or exercise. And like I said, you are more than welcome to send me an email after the lesson if you still have questions. And we only have maths related questions in the chat. Also, I'm using the SIYAVULA textbook. So if you're using a different textbook, it's fine. You'll probably have the same content. And it's also good to use different books so that you can do more problems. And then we're gonna do past papers from our DBE website so that we can get ready for tests and exams. And then also, if you missed sessions, you can go to our YouTube channel and search for your grade and subject. Remember, there's other subjects, not just maths. So if you missed other sessions or you just want to review a session that we already conducted, then you can just go to YouTube and search for Africa Teen Geeks and then your grade and the subject. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for any other updates. Okay. So we're still working on question papers. So we're still using our distance formula, our gradient, how to calculate our gradient between 2 points, the midpoint, and also using properties of quadrilaterals. So I'm suggesting that you also review properties of triangles in case if you have to prove something and you can use triangles to help you with the proof, okay? So just look into properties of quadrilaterals and triangles in case if you can use that to help you. Okay. So we're still continuing with our 2018 November exam. So by the end of our session today, we will be done with that. And then we agreed that the most important thing is to read our question or our given statement carefully because most of the answers are within our problem statement, okay? And when we were reading the question yesterday, we saw that we were given a diagram. Please note that if you're given a quadrilateral, you don't know if it's a parallelogram or a kite, or so you don't know which quadrilateral it is. So you can't use properties of a quadrilateral until it is stated or after proving that it is a certain quadrilateral. So you only use properties of quadrilaterals if it is given. For example, the point M, it is a midpoint if you're given enough information or after you prove that it is a particular shape, okay? So it's just that in this case, they used the letter M. They could have used any other letter like P or R. It doesn't, just because it's M doesn't automatically mean it's a midpoint. You need to have enough information for you to say that it's a midpoint, okay? So in our information, we were given that we have parallel lines. So we know that AD and BC are parallel. We also know that there's an x-intercept at point E, and we also said point N is also another x-intercept, okay? So we have an x-intercept at point E. So we have an x-intercept at point E, and we have another one at point N. Okay, so we have two x-intercepts, and we have another one here, here, and there. Okay, so those are our x-intercepts, and the y-intercept would be so our point C, this point, and the other one would be our y-intercepts. Okay, so we know our intercepts. We know that BD, we also know that BD intersects AC. Sorry about that. We also have, so we know we identified our x-intercepts, we know our y-intercepts, and then we also know that BD intersects AC at this point. Okay, so we have two lines intersecting at point M, which simply means that we can equate their equations. Okay, so from yesterday, we calculated the gradient. So we were supposed to calculate the gradient of B, C, okay? And we realized that we have the point C and B. So we have both X and Y. So remember, it's good to show which one is your X1. So you need to show your X1, Y1, and then also your X2 and your Y2. Okay. So make sure you identify. So you can use either one of the points as your Y1 or as your X2. Okay. And then after that, because you have all points, it means you can use the equation to find your gradient, isn't it? So you can use this equation to find your gradient between 2 points. And then the answer that we got yesterday. So remember, you need to substitute correctly. So we substituted and we got that our gradient is 4/3. Okay. So you get marks for the correct substitution. So if you correct the right values, you get a mark, and also you get a mark for your answer. So even if you don't get your answer correctly, you'll still get a mark for substituting. So then we got 4/3. Okay. And then you were supposed to determine the equation of AD. So we agreed that to calculate your equation, you can either use this formula, because if you look at line AD, sorry about that. So if you look at AD, you have a point A, and you also have the gradient. Why? Because they said AD is parallel BC. Okay, so if we have parallel lines, the gradients are equal. So because you know the gradient of BC from the previous question, then you can have the same gradient. And now that you have a gradient and a point, then you can calculate your equation. And then I said another way would be to simply use the equation y equals to mx plus c. Okay. And then still same thing, you have a point, you have a gradient, and you just have to calculate your C. And then after calculating your C, then you would get your answer for the equation. And then you were supposed to determine T. Okay, so how do you think you will calculate your point T? How do you calculate point T from the information that you have? Okay, remember we said from the previous question, from 3.2, we calculated the equation of the line AD, okay? And point N is a x-intercept of the line AD, okay? So you can substitute back into your equation because you have the gradient, and then in the place of x, so you would have your equation. Let's look at our final equation. So if you calculated your equation, you would have okay. So if you calculated your, so remember the two methods I mentioned, you can either use this one to get your C, and then you substitute it back into your equation, okay? Or you can use the other. So there's more than one way of solving the problem, but you will still get marks, okay? So if from our equation, so this is our equation. Okay, and then you're looking for T. So what this simply means is that because this is your x-intercept, you will have your 0 equals to 4/3, and then your x value is T plus okay. So now that you have an equation, your only unknown is T, then you can solve for T. Is that fine? So do you guys understand up to that point? So you just have to solve for your T, and then you are settled because you used your equation for line AD, and then you looked for the x-intercept. So now you have your value of T. Okay. So if you go, so you have your T as -7/2. Remember, when your 14/3 goes to the other side, it changes sign. So if 14/3 crosses over an equal sign, then the sign changes from positive to negative. Okay, so just note that you will have a that you will have a -14/3. So you will remain with 4t/3, which is equals to -14/3. Okay, because your 14/3 went to the other side. Okay. And then to calculate the length of AN, you simply using okay. So to calculate your length of AN, it's just the distance. So please make sure that you substitute your values correctly. Okay. Because now you have your coordinate for N. So you have two coordinates and their X and Y values. Then you substitute correctly and then you get your AN. So what do you get for your length of AN? So what do you get for your length of AN? Remember, make sure that this is your x2, x1, and if there's a negative value, like in this case, you have a -2, and it's your x. So make sure that you substitute a negative value. Be conscious of that so that you don't miss some of the marks. So if there's a negative value, rather put brackets and use that. So what did you get for your length of AN? Remember, we're just using the distance formula. Okay. We can go just. Okay. So it's 5/2. Okay. So if you substituted correctly, you will get your answer. Okay. And then now for 3.5, they say if DC is defined by this, so they give you the equation for DC. Okay, so you find the equation for DC. And then they say determine the coordinates of D. So you're given the equation for the line DC. So this line is given by y equals to 3/8. Okay, so you're given the equation of the line DC. Okay. And you are supposed to determine the coordinates of the line DC, isn't it? Okay, so what do you think would be your coordinates? So you're given the line DC, and you are supposed to calculate the coordinates. Okay, so what do you think would be the coordinates of point C? Okay, for example, remember there's more than one way of solving this problem. Okay, someone would find, remember you're given the equation of DC. So someone would say, okay, I would find the equation of BC. So you would find the equation of line BC. And if you look at the point C, that's where DC and BC interact or intersect. Okay, so you would find the equation of BC and then equate it to this equation. Does it make sense? Then you can solve for x, and then the value of x that you get, you substitute back into your equation. Then you get the other value. Okay. So if you find your coordinates, let's see how they do it. So you see, they equated the lines. And then you find that. So okay. So that's how you would find the coordinates. So you just use as the relationships of the equations that you have. Okay. And then for number 3.6, you are asked to prove or show so you are asked to prove or show that this AB CD is a parallelogram. Okay, so before you didn't know that it is a parallelogram. Okay, but then now you are being asked to prove that it is a parallelogram. Okay, so it means you look at your properties for a parallelogram and see which one you can prove. So you don't have to prove all the properties. So someone can choose to show that opposite sides are parallel, and then someone else could show that the sides are parallel and equal, and then someone else could choose to prove that this point is a midpoint. Okay, so it would depend on what you want to show. So you don't have to prove everything. You can just choose one and work with that. Okay, hope it makes sense. Okay, so that's, and then only after you prove that this is a parallelogram, then in the next question, then you can you can use properties of a parallelogram. Okay, so only after you prove that it's a parallelogram, then you can use that. Okay, so remember, you need to show, so you don't have to show that so you can just choose one thing that you want to prove. For example, let's go. Okay. Let's say, for example, you decided to show. So you could have either worked out to show that the opposite sides are parallel. Okay. So if you're showing that the opposite sides are parallel, you need to show. So you need to show, for example, you're already given that AD is parallel to BC, okay? So it means you would need to calculate the gradient of DC and the gradient of AB to check if they're equal. So if the gradient of DC and AB are equal, then it means they are parallel. Then you can show that, okay, it is a parallelogram because opposite sides are parallel. Or you could have decided to show that, okay, let me check the length of AD and the length of BC. And then if these sides are parallel, which is given, and equal in length, then it means it is a parallelogram. Someone else could have decided to calculate the midpoint of DB and the midpoint of AC, and if they are equal, then it means point M is a midpoint. So only then, after you prove that it's a parallelogram, then you can definitely say that your point M is a midpoint. Okay. So that's the way you are supposed to do it. So for your homework, this is your homework, and then we'll cover it on Monday. But then if you still have questions, you are welcome. So your homework is from the SIYAVULA textbook, and it's just to practice what we've been doing this week. And remember, if, for example, in number 8, you are given that ABCD is a quadrilateral, so you don't know which quadrilateral it is. See, for example, at E, they ask you what quadrilateral it is. So you don't use properties of a quadrilateral until you know what it is. Okay. But then in number 9, they gave you question 3.7. Okay. Is 3.7. So just to make sure that okay, before, these are your coordinates for point D. So these are your coordinates for point D. And then that's your 3.7. So are you guys fine? Okay, great. So just try the homework before our class on Monday. And then we'll try to go through the corrections and then start new work on Tuesday. Okay. And when you do the problems, try to draw your the diagram showing your Cartesian plate. Yeah. So that it's easy to work out. Remember guys to, okay, all the work, okay, let me just quickly show you how to get access. Okay, so let me try to show you how to, okay, so just go through your homework and yeah. So let me show you how to get links for the previous sessions. Let's see if we can go there. Okay. So if you want to get, let me try to show you how to get access to the videos. Okay. So to get videos for the previous sessions, you go to YouTube. Then Africa 10 gigs. Okay, so you go to Africa 10 gigs and then you search for your subject and grade. So let's say you're looking for physical science, then you will just type in physical science. And then you can also type your grade. Then you will get videos for the previous sessions. Okay, so I'll see you guys on Monday. So that's how you get access to the previous videos. So Kuzayo, do you see how you get the videos?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you just go to YouTube, Africa 10 Gigs, and then you click, you type your subject and grade. Then you can get videos for the other subjects and all that.
Yes, ma'am.
So any other questions with today's work? Or are you guys fine? Okay, so send me an email if you still need help.